Yeah, hi guys, Gavin Allinson here. I'm a sports nutritionist, and about 12 to 15 years ago, I dropped about 50 pounds. I was a former rugby player. I was fat. I was overweight. I was living it large in terms of drinking lots of beer and eating lots of shit, and my health wasn't in a great place. And if you saw, I go back a little bit and look at my journey to get into that point. I was pretty lean until I went to university and discovered beer and kebabs. And once I was there, then the weight just stacked on me. And it wasn't long before I had my nickname on my shirt, Fat Gav. Now, back then, people didn't really train in the gym much. So that was 88 to 92. I was at Bath University. And we had a gym, but none of the boys hardly ever went in there. And we didn't have any six packs around. I don't even know the first time I actually heard the term of a six pack. But there might have been one or two of the backs who had six packs, but none of the forwards certainly did. And so it was a different time. It was a different era then. And even though I studied biology at university, I had no idea about what I had to do to become lean. So I carried it after university, went traveling, played a bit of rugby in Australia, came back, ended up in Coventry, and played there for a couple of seasons in the championship, just as the game was starting to go professional. We were still starting to go to the gym and stuff, but it wasn't massive like it is now. My 15-year-old has trained more in the gym and done more weight sessions than I did up until I was 25 already. I'm positive about that. So when I stopped playing rugby around about late 20s, I started rowing, and then that was really hard training. So we trained like 6-7 sessions a week. But my diet was shit and I ate loads of stuff. I thought, I'm fueling all this exercise, all this aerobic exercise. I need to, eat. I can afford to eat whatever I want. And my weight ballooned and I was up to around 118 kilos. Now, at that time, even though my weight had increased, I'd found I was fairly good in terms of power and aerobics on the rowing machine. And I was approaching 40. So there's an opportunity to have a crack at the British and European indoor rowing championships. And then at that time, I bumped into Steve Backley, the javelin thrower, who was at one of the indoor rowing events. So I was chatting to him and researched him, did a little bit of Google stalking afterwards, and found he was working on a project with a guy called Matt Lovell, who at the time was the England rugby nutritionist. So I thought, that could be a good idea, because I was wanting to look at my nutrition to improve my rowing performance, so I could, have a chance at winning and doing better. So Matt and I started working together, and at one point Matt said, "Look, I'm going to lose a bit of fat before I go on holiday." And I said, "Okay, right, let's do it. Let's write it all down." I was doing a lot of internet marketing at the time, so that's why we were going down this way. So I said, "Look, let's write it all down. We'll follow it. And then we can publish it. We can make it into an e-product, an e-book. And also, when you have clients, you'll have that stair-step method for them to go through. So you can give that to them. So that will bring them up to speed a lot quicker than you having to explain all the finer details." And that's a little bit what I'm doing here now. This is like the next evolution of that. So we followed that program. I lost 10 pounds in like a couple of weeks, got really lean. And then over the next 10 years, bringing us more up to date to where we are now, I've spent that time getting more qualified in sports nutrition, learning more, worked closely with Matt over that period of time. Matt was England's rugby sports nutritionist, so came into contact with a lot of the different rugby players that he worked with. Always testing and trying new things. Now, I had a client kept on, "Come on, Gav, you got to try this. You got to try keto." And I was like, "No, come on, mate." I did the Atkins Diet back in the day, must have been around the early 2000s when it was popular. Lost a little bit of weight, but didn't really like the food that I was eating. Around about this time, my stepdad got diagnosed with cancer. And I'd asked Matt, what's the best type of diet for cancer? I did a lot of research, and what kept coming back was the ketogenic diet. That's a high-fat, low-carb type of diet, a little bit like the Atkins. Anyway, we talked about that with my stepdad. He wasn't keen on trying it. But then as things move forward, I kept on coming across more things to do with ketogenic diet. I was a fan of Tim Ferriss. I'd gotten into BJJ by this stage and was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Joe Rogan was a big proponent of the ketogenic diet. Listened to Tim Ferriss' podcast, came across a guy called Dr. Dom D'Agostino. And then that led me more into looking at Rhonda Patrick and Jason Fung. Now, these guys are more into fasting. Now, I'd poo-pooed the 5-2 diet a little bit. That's popular here in the UK. My mum had a go at it. She'd lost a lot of weight on the original program that Matt and I did and kept that off. But she just seemed to like the 5-2 diet. Now, I wasn't that keen on fasting. Or I didn't think I was until I gave it a go. So this comes back to our point. So there's 5 points, there's 5 principles that we're covering in this program that I've developed called FFS. Yeah, so that's Fat, Fast, Shred. Okay, so the first point is skip breakfast. Yeah, so wake up, don't have breakfast, wait until you get till lunchtime before you have your first meal. Now, that first meal might be, well, it doesn't matter what the first meal is, but you can have coffee, you can have teas. You don't have any milk or sugar in your teas, but just get through till lunchtime. Now, that might be a big ask for some of you, but you can gradually stair-step your way into it. Now, one of the major benefits for doing that is you're going to reduce your calorie intake over the course of the day. So if you're missing out your breakfast, usually 400 to 600 calories you might be having, you're going to be better off. And there's loads of health benefits that are being found to do with what's called skipping breakfast or intermittent fasting. Yeah, so lots of that information is in the program. You can find it online anywhere you go and look. It's all out there, freely available. Search intermittent fasting health benefits. You get loads of stuff coming up. So that's really important. And what I find is the days when I do have breakfast, I eat more, or I want to eat more during the course of that day. So I'll have the leftover porridge that my son doesn't eat, and then I'll eat that, and then come 9:30, I want something else. I'm looking in the fridge for something else. But then on the days that I fast, I've made that decision, right, I'm not eating. That's it, job done. I'll wait until lunchtime till I eat something. Okay, so that's the first point. Skip breakfast, intermittent fast. The second point is the Steve Jobs method of meal prep. Now, Steve Jobs was famed for wearing the same uniform every day. He wore New Balance trainers, blue jeans, and a black turtleneck sweater. Now, the idea behind that, from his point of view, is he didn't have to make any decisions when he woke up. He knew exactly what he was going to be wearing. Yeah, not, oh, shall I wear this? Shall I, oh, what's the weather like? He just wore the same shit every day. Makes a lot of sense. It takes a lot of the decision making out of things. And that's what we want to get to when it comes to making our food choices. We want to get a core range of meals that we eat 80 to 90% of the time. You do that anyway, guys. You're probably having the same breakfast. You're probably having the same snack. You're probably having the same lunch 70 to 80% of the time, or slight variations of that. All we want to do is make sure that we tweak those meals that you have and make sure they're bang on in terms of fat loss, their fat loss ability, their nutritional content. And we'll do that via the Facebook group, going backwards and forwards. So that's a real key thing, the Steve Jobs meal prep method. Okay, then the next thing is when you eat and timing when you eat. Now, what really we want to time this around is our activity. Now, some of you probably aren't going to the gym or aren't training, but you will be doing some activity. So you want to be doing your activity at the furthest point away from when you've had a meal. So let's say if you were training first thing in the morning, if you could have your last meal at 6 o'clock the previous night, that's going to be better than if you're eating, say, at 9 o'clock, because less of that food's going to be being digested, and you're going to be able to tap into your fat stores that much quicker. Now, generally, it's a case of more people be training lunchtime and in the afternoons. So if you can fast, it's better to fast in the morning and train at lunchtime or first thing at work. So lots of guys I know, they'll go through the day, they won't eat, they'll go and train straight after work at 5 o'clock, and then they'll have one meal a day and maybe another snack. That is something that's totally doable. You can train yourself to do that. You may think that it's impossible right now, but believe me, you can do it. So when you eat is important. Now, the other thing is planning around any parties that you might be going to, events. Now, for me, the boys from Oxford Harlequins Rugby Club, a few of us coaches, we go to Henley each year, and it gets a bit messy. We end up probably drinking. Well, not probably. We do end up drinking too much, going for a curry afterwards. Probably have, I think last year we got there, we had a full English breakfast at like lunchtime. So it's a big old day from a calorific point of view. Now, you're going to have times like this in your life when you're going to want to go on these things, and you're not going to want to be sitting there munching on a lettuce leaf in the corner, feeling like Billy No Mates. So what we do is we plan around these events. So in the lead up, so when you're going to have an event like this, so you want to go on a really low calorie phase up until that point. Now, that might involve some prolonged fasting. I regularly do a 3-day fast. Yeah, don't freak out, don't get scared. You don't have to do that to start off with. We'll step you into that, but you can do that. We're rugby players at the end of the day, not snowflakes. So, and once you make a decision, you can do it. Your mind, it's great for training your mind as well as a whole heap of additional benefits. But if you do that, if you monitor the amount of calories you have going into an event and then the calories and the food that you have post-event, you can mitigate against any of those big parties or big events where you're going to overfeed. And actually, it's often a good idea to plan these strategic overfeeds into your overall process. You'd be wanting to do them generally, but let's make an event out of it and work out when's the optimal time to do that. And then the last thing, and this is all information that's in the Fat Fast Shred program you can get hold of. It's only $17, 17 quid. And that's just really to make sure that you've got a little bit of skin in the game and you're actually going to do something with it. And you can come into our Facebook group and we'll discuss all these different things. So, and then going back to planning for those events, there's 4 types a day that we're going to have. So we're going to have a total fast day where you might have 0 to 200 calories. On that day, you may have some bone broth. You may have some, so you're going to have coffee, you're going to have tea. You may have some exogenous ketones. You might have some MCT oil, but it's going to be very, very low calories on that day, less than 200. Then the next one is next type of day you'll have is a lean and green. So you're going to have 2 meals. You can have a lot of protein, so that's going to help spare your muscle mass so you don't lose any muscle mass, and a shitload of green veg, broccoli, spinach, asparagus, green beans, all that type of stuff, yeah, and very little fat. So that's going to be your 800 to 1,000 calorie day, so that's still a real big fat loss program. So they're the 2 types a day. The third type of day is a general fat loss day, so we're going to have 3 meals or 2 meals and a snack, and that's going to be around, for the average guy, around 15,000 to 2,000 calories. So that'll be spread over 3 meals, and they're going to be higher fat, low carb type of meals. Your scrambled eggs, your mixed salads with smoked mackerel or salmon, different types of fish, all yummy stuff. All stuff that you can get from the supermarket if you're caught short or if you haven't had time to plan. No problems with that, and we detail all of this inside the program. And then the 4th type of day is that strategic overfeed day that we were just talking about, where you're going to have between 3,000 and 4,000 calories. Some people call it a cheat day. I don't like the language cheat day. I'd rather call it a strategic overfeed. Yeah, so it's something that we've planned into the program. So that's some of the concepts that we'll talk about. The guys that are following this program are losing anything from 30 pounds in 12 weeks. Obviously, you've got to have a fair bit of weight to lose to be dropping that much. But most people out there have got 2 stone to lose. They might think and say, oh yeah, I'll be happy if I lost a stone. No, you're still going to be fat. You need to lose 2 stone. If you think it's a stone you need to add an extra stone onto it. So there's no reason why you can't get back into the shape that you were in your prime, whenever that was, whether that was before you went to university like me, or after you went to university, or at some other point. Yeah, other people can do it. It's just a case of focusing, getting yourself in the right community, and pushing through. But the good thing about it is, with this program, you can have those days where you're going to have curry, where you're going to have your kebabs. Yeah, we're planning for all that type of thing in there because this wants to be sustainable. It's not going to be something you do for a few weeks, but batten down the hatches and then that's it. The weight starts creeping back on. This is skills that you're going to have, and you're going to be able to have them for life. So yeah, look forward to seeing you on the other side. Click the button. Let's get into the Facebook group. Let's get chatting. There's a free coaching call with me, so we can sit down over Skype, have a half-hour conversation, get to the bare bones of what you need to do, how you can be moving forward, and I look forward to having those with you. Catch you later, guys.